You are listening to the Sinister DreamCast Network.
So, what's the plan?
I'm gonna start shaking things up.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Don't say that. What? That? What? That?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Tell him about the Twinkie.
What about the Twinkie?
Gentlemen, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Hello and welcome to the Insert Movie Reference Here podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nick Kazina.
I'm the other host, which is also a host, and that's me. I'm Joe Conniff.
How are you, my friend?
Good. I'm well. How are you?
I'm well. I got this new thing in the mail called a fidget cube. Are you familiar with these?
I've heard of such a thing. I'm not familiar with them. I don't have one, or have never actually seen one.
I would highly recommend it. It's quite nice. It's good for thinking because it gives you, it distracts your brain. But there's multi layers to it. There's a clicking side, which is really fat. There's two clicking sides, both very satisfying. I don't know if you could pick that up. There's also a joystick on it, which is nice as well.
So you can work those gamer muscles.
Yeah. This is for all those hours of Borderlands, so I can get better.
Yeah.
And I could play online. I have no interest in playing any video game online.
Yeah, me neither. I never have. I don't know what it is about video games online that just makes it less appealing to me, but I've always kind of been that way.
Yeah, because I've been playing the Borderlands franchise, and if I get stuck on something, after so many times of dying, I will then look up a video on it, and then just watching the people who are like really into the game, I'm like, I don't want to interact with these people.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. You don't want to interact with people that do online gaming as well. That's another part of it.
And then you have the whole, South Korean factor, which just makes it completely useless. Like, do you know that they have gaming curfews in South Korea because it got so bad?
No, but I believe it.
No gaming. I think it's from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m. And I guess they monitor like underage like IPs. Mm-hmm. And if you if they catch you logging on under, like, you get fined like a ridiculous amount, and then like they shut off your internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Huh.
It's going to be a really exciting episode. Everybody.
Yeah, this is a good start. We started out recording for the first 2 minutes talking about logos.
Yeah.
At our respective workplaces and how we don't understand. And apparently the thrilling topic of conversation that Nick and I always behold on this podcast carried over into the actual recording.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah.
This week, we'll start out with a follow-up to last week, which literally, like, the day that the episode came out, Lucasfilm released a statement, which they don't usually do in regards to rumors, but given the situation, they felt the need to nip this one in the bud. But obviously, they got a pre-recording of our podcast and agreed with us.
Yes.
That they should not use a digital version of Leia.
Which is interesting that we talked about how they need to get out in front of this.
Yeah.
And literally, almost as soon as this podcast hit the airwaves, Lucasfilm was getting out in front of it. Not saying we have anything to do with it, but, I'm just saying we probably had something to do with it. That's all.
Yeah. If nothing else, great minds think alike.
I love the idea that all of the big heads at Lucasfilm would possibly listen to this podcast. I like the idea that someone, just one of them, is a listener to this podcast for some strange, demented reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hold out for the Andy chick who does Rebels Recon, if you've ever watched any of that.
No, I don't think so.
Oh. Incredibly attractive woman.
Okay.
I'm a sucker for a girl with unnaturally colored hair and or curls, and she has both. It's a big sucker for her.
Yeah.
So
well,
she
for
would
your
be
sake,
listening.
for your fantasy's sake, Nick, then she's the listener.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah, but it's good that they're at least taking this approach here. And I honestly they kind of protected themselves in some way by not saying that they don't usually respond to rumors. But I don't think that this was actually in response to rumors. I think this is actually what they planned on doing. They're just making it sound like it was generated from rumors, you know? But I think that part of their plan here is to do exactly what we said and get out in front of this before it actually becomes a rumor.
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of as it happens, there were a lot of websites that were running it as an article.
Yeah.
Lots of blogs are talking about it. Some proponents for doing this whole digital thing. Because I got into a conversation this very weekend.
Yeah.
About this. And me saying how, it's squiggy and there's a lot of ethical questions involved and that kind of stuff.
And I think that's the point of getting in front of it quickly is you don't want to create a faction in the fan base where there's a group of the fan base that wants it and there's a group that doesn't. You don't want that to grow, You don't want this fan base to have this fiery debate, and then whenever you make a decision one way or the other, you're alienating a group of your fan base, and they feel like you've done something wrong, and you're not doing because the group of people that wanted the digital replacement are the people that are probably against recasting her.
Yeah.
So and the longer this would go on, and the longer this goes on where they don't announce what they're going to do, the longer it's the more likely we're going to solidify factions within the fan base of people taking sides of what they think Lucasfilm should do. Which is already happening, but the longer it goes, the stronger that mindset is built in. So at this point, it's just nip it off and just go, hey, we're definitely not doing this. So people that thought that that's what they were going to do and thought that's what they should do can just go, oh, well, that's not happening. And then they could think about it and kind of maybe go, well, yeah, I guess that's not cool. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. They're not taking it personally. The people that thought they should have done this. Because they haven't been tied to the idea. They're not married to the idea.
They didn't get a lot of likes and comments.
Yeah, exactly.
The drugs of the internet, likes and comments.
Yeah. Not enough people have picked a side at this point, which is good.
Yeah, so hopefully they do recast. I'm still holding out hope for a Meryl Streep or someone of that caliber.
Yeah.
I really think she'd do it, given the situation.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, she doesn't really do those kinds of movies, but I could see her doing this.
Exactly.
And winning an Oscar for it, by the way.
Probably, at least being nominated.
Which would be so fucked up. Because they would have never, ever nominated Carrie Fisher to be... That would be the ultimate fucked up thing that the Oscars could ever do.
Those are the times that I really hope there's an afterlife just so she could flick them off.
Just how fucked up would that be? I mean, you're basically saying that she stepped into the role of Leia and did it better.
Yeah.
And you could see, the Academy doing that. Especially if Leia has a bigger role come Episode 9. Yeah. Well, I think that is something... I think that is what they're going to do. Since they're not going to... What option is there now, right? Mm-hmm. Write her out of the script, It seems like they've come so far at this point. They've already done it's already set in motion what they're going to do,
Yeah. I feel like them making the comment about her not being digital... I don't want to be the internet speculation guy, but I'm going to be the internet speculation guy. Them making the comment that they're not going to make her digital... I think kind of solidifies the fact that they're gonna probably recast her, because you wouldn't make a big deal about this if you were gonna write her out, then you wouldn't need to get out in front of it. You know what I mean?
Right, and I think logically that makes sense. Rationally, they're not gonna write her out of it. It seems highly unlikely they'll write her out of it. So for the people that are now accepting the fact that there's not gonna be a digitally replicant on screen of Leia as Carrie Fisher as Leia, you're basically at this point, everyone's kind of already coming to the conclusion that they're going to recast her, whether they realize it or not. So when they announce it, it's not going to be this big uproar. You can't do that sort of thing. I think this is exactly what we talked about last week. This is exactly what they have to do. They have to just do this. They have to do it delicately, and they have to do it in a way where people feel like they came up with that idea to recast her. You have to almost trick the fans into thinking that this is the best choice.
Yeah.
Even the ones that wouldn't be on board, you have to trick them into kind of incepting the idea on their own, sort of like we have. And so that's we're on the side of recasting her because we came up with that idea. They have to. That's the right thing to do here.
Yeah.
And it's whatever you in that moment feel is the right thing to do, and that's it. And people are going to latch onto it. So you just need to convince people that the right thing to do is to recast her. Which
it is.
And this is and it's good to see Lucasfilm again just giving a shit about the fans.
Yeah.
And knowing what's best for them and knowing what's best for their franchise.
I agree. So, real quick, Joe, we're not doing an inside out about it, but as you know, we said on this podcast a billion times, this podcast is about our friendship. So, as a friend, I'm asking my friend, how was Arrival? Because Joe watched Arrival.
Yeah, I got to see. I had a copy of it in my house as a screener because my brother is a SAG member and he gets the SAG Award stuff. Which sadly, Deadpool was nominated for nothing in the SAG Awards, which is a crime. But I will not be getting the Deadpool screener as a result. I got this. He got this past season of Orange Is the New Black. So because they're
Oh right, for the SAG.
Yes,
Awards. I was thinking the Oscars for a second. I'm like, what?
No, it's for the SAG Awards that he's getting them, and that's the only reason why he's getting the screeners because of the SAG Awards. So Orange Is the New Black is up for stuff, and they sent out screeners for this past season, which is really weird to own a copy of Orange Is the New Black on DVD at all. It's just a weird thing to have. One season of it when all of the seasons are available to me on my television right now.
Right.
It's just a weird thing to say that you have. It's just a strange thing. One season on DVD.
Not even season 1.
This past season was season 4?
3.
And it's let's want to watch a new season of Orange Is the New Black. Let's pop that in. No, that's not. Nobody owns this stuff on DVD. Why would you?
No, there are people who do own it, Joe. They sell out at Target pretty quickly. Actually.
Why? You can watch it whenever you want, unless Netflix is going to take it down,
which I highly doubt. Since
you're going to cancel your Netflix account. But what do you need the copy of it for? It's such a strange thing. Anyhow, Arrival's very good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's a sad movie, dude. Get ready. It's a sad fucking movie. And I wasn't ready for that. I was not ready for this movie to be this sad. It is a sad movie, but it's great. It's a very great philosophical, thought-provoking science fiction movie. It's something that I liked about it. It asked a lot of questions. The primary thing about it has to do with language and communication. Our main character is basically a language expert, and she just knows everything there is about language, and she understands how language is formed and how language is passed on. And the movie's a lot about communicating with something that doesn't have a basis, and just sort of understanding words and language and structure, and understanding that communication in another civilization could be built completely differently, as is true also about human beings, that were evolved on different parts of this planet. It's the same thing, basically, just to a more extreme level. And it's kind of interesting just to see how communication is sort of worked out. Because one of the main things in the movie that and the way the movie's set up basically is these pods all mysteriously appear in 12 places around the Earth randomly. And you kind of see all of the world's different governments, major governments, kind of dealing with this in their own way. and sort of just it's sort of like this made up fictitious social experiment is what the whole movie is. How would we get along as a planet in a situation like this is pretty much what the whole movie's about. And the fact that the movie's about language and communication, it is very interesting that the whole movie hinges on how the human species communicates with one another around the globe, like globally. And yeah, it's a very interesting movie, and it poses another movie that or another question, philosophical question that I'm not going to say because it's a spoiler. But it's an overarching question in the movie that you realize in the movie is already answered. It's a pretty clever movie, actually. I thought it was very well written. One of the better scripts I've actually seen in terms of a movie and in terms of writing and the way characters interact. I thought the dialogue was fantastic, and there wasn't anything wrong with this movie. You know what I mean? It's just sad.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't expect it to be that sad. It's pretty heavy.
Like, is it an overall sad thing, or is
there's a general malaise to the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. The whole thing. I mean, it starts out sad and it doesn't get happier. I'm completely like the first 5 minutes of this movie is sad. I would say I would equate the first 5 to 10 minutes of this movie to the movie Up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it sums up a life event in a main character that you have to kind of deal with for the rest of the movie about this character. So, yeah. So the movie starts that way and just doesn't exactly get happier. It's not exactly and there's some pretty sappy parts in this movie, I'll admit. Like, I thought that the writers, the only thing that they kind of weren't good at doing in terms of writing this movie, which most sci-fi writers need help with, is working with romance in a movie. And the romance is it's interesting. It's pretty much non-existent that goes on in the movie. It's intentional because of the way the spoiler is, but I didn't like the way the twist in the movie is. I didn't feel like the twist is that profound. I think you put it together, and I don't think they're trying to trick you into it. It's not one of those things. It's not an M. Night Shyamalan twist. It's just long before they ever reveal it, you put it together. What is happening? It's just from there because from there the movie gets a little slow. I'll admit, because you kind of figured it out. And there's really not much left in the movie. You're just trying to figure out what the aliens want at that point. But the character's mystery has a aspect to it. It's good though. It's a good movie. It's worth a watch. And it's a really good movie for sci-fi, because we kind of need movies like this in the science fiction genre to not just be like fucking Transformers or some shit. You know what I mean? That people call science fiction, and it's like, not really. And you kind of sit there and you just hate the fact that people are calling that sci-fi.
Right.
And you're just like, you could argue for and against it either way, but I don't even want to have the conversation. This movie is legit science fiction, but it also has a drama aspect to it that I think is important, because science fiction doesn't need to be action, and I don't know where that came from in the 21st century. Star Wars, but I think in just general, like most of the time, like I think people associate it for some reason with spaceships and fighting.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, also, to be fair, Star Wars isn't a sci-fi movie, but that's another conversation.
That's another conversation as well, another debate that you would have to have. That, again, I don't want to have because I don't even want to have it. Like, it's not a debate I think is worth having.
Better than Interstellar?
Completely different. Completely different movie than Interstellar, in my opinion. But better than Interstellar, it's not. Yeah, I don't know. The science of this movie is more human based. It's not a cosmos. It's not a science fiction cosmos movie. It's a lot more human than that. So it's a lot more Earth present. So it's a very different movie. It focuses on something completely different. So it's really hard to say, and especially when comparing science fiction movies, it gets really. That's why science fiction is my favorite genre, because you almost can't compare the good ones to each other. Because when they're good in their own way, and they found a good science fiction movie finds its own sort of peak in science fiction. It finds a new little nook that we haven't just like really talked about yet in science fiction, right? And it focuses on it. It has a laser focus on that, and it makes its story based on that. And that's what I love about it. And anytime a science fiction movie does that, it's like it's in its own little genre, its own subgenre of science fiction, and it stands alone on a pedestal. So very hard to say that it's. I think it's for a different audience. It's a completely different audience of science fiction. I would say people that loved Interstellar will never allow this movie to be considered better. But if you were a little indifferent on Interstellar, you would go, I like this better than Interstellar. And you really couldn't win an argument between the two of them because they're just sound movies.
Yeah. I didn't like Interstellar, so
it's fine. I mean, like I said, like that's the thing with Interstellar is if you are into what Interstellar was trying to accomplish, if you're into that sort of thing, then you probably love Interstellar. I've talked to people, they just love it. And I don't get it because I don't really give a shit about the science of black holes.
And they don't make you give a shit in that movie either,
they really
you know
don't.
What I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think if you're a big movie person, you really don't care for Interstellar. I think as a movie, like, and as it serving a purpose as a movie and a story, it really doesn't do its job. You know, it leaves you wanting something as a moviegoer. But as someone that probably likes the fact that all of the stuff in there is as factually based as the present data gives them, and goes even beyond that, and creates this like realm of possibility sort of thing, some people love that. I think Star Trek fans, if they would have let themselves, should have loved Interstellar.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like you could probably make a way more interesting documentary about the exact same thing.
I agree.
Or are you familiar with that Rome documentary series that they have on Netflix, Joe?
I know of it. I've never watched.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is that it's narrative and it also has like experts chiming in, like talking heads. Mm-hmm. If they would have done something like that, for Interstellar, I would have been totally down. Sort
of like a narrative documentary. It would have been, yeah. Then you'd feel like you're learning something instead of everything literally just going over your head.
Yeah, while I was watching Interstellar, I just got the general feeling of you're too dumb to understand this.
Yeah, that's something I've complained several times about Interstellar is it's like the Nolan brothers made this movie and they just wanted to show everybody look how fucking smart we are. You know, look how smart we are for coming up with this movie. And it's like I don't that's the thing. It's like it throws it in the viewer's face that they won't understand this unless you were like studied this stuff and then you'd appreciate it. Why would I want to study something and watch a movie? Mm-hmm. Before watching a movie, why would I want to study something? And then I'm lost and then I have to go study it. Like the movie doesn't really, you don't learn anything from it, but it has all this really detailed information in it. And I just don't care because I don't know what any of it is. And it's like the filmmakers are almost laughing at you because you don't know.
It's like...
It's a bit pompous.
It's incredibly pompous. It's almost like the antithesis of Nolan's filmmaking.
It is,
he loves convoluted bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's next level of that, so... Yeah. So hopefully his new movie is going to be less convoluted because it's based on a true story.
I can't see how he can't... Like, if he makes that convoluted, I give up on him as a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think actually he might. I mean, he churned this one out pretty fast, so I don't think they had the time to really. And I talk about Christopher Nolan like I would. I talk for me. It's Christopher Nolan and his brother, who I don't remember his name. Jonathan. Yeah. Who is doing a terrific job on Westworld right now.
Oh right, yeah, isn't
terrific.
He like the head writer?
Yeah, he's basically the showrunner. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see them as a duo. I see them as a duo. Like that, you can't convince me that Christopher Nolan is anywhere without his brother because his brother is probably a better writer than him, and they're both very good story guys. They're both very good at what they do, and I think he should start getting just as much, if not more, credit than Christopher Nolan at this point.
Well, apparently in a interview, I only read the headline, so I don't know. But apparently in an interview that Jonathan Nolan did for Westworld, he said that he doesn't like the ending of Interstellar either, and he had a different ending.
Interesting.
That he said was way less convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we know what finger to point to.
Yeah. But yeah.
So, in short, Arrival worth a watch.
Oh yeah, worth a watch. Yeah, especially if you want something to root for at the Oscars, I think you should watch Arrival. I do have Moonlight. I am going to watch that. I'm not going to watch Manchester by the Sea or Manchester at the Sea or it's just I've heard it's just so sad, and I heard Moonlight is kind of sad too, but Manchester is specifically, I've been told, it's just depressing. It puts you in a really bad funk.
I haven't seen Moonlight, but from what I heard about Moonlight, it sounds like it would probably do about the same.
Yeah.
It sounds very kind of like that, like Precious.
Mm-hmm.
That came out a couple 5 years ago.
Yeah,
kind of the same thing.
Unfortunate. The movie makes you feel like everything happening in it is quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. Like, I think all the movies that are going to be up for Oscar are going to be sad, and then Deadpool.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Maybe that will be its greatest strength, is that everyone will watch the screeners and just go, ugh.
Yeah. We're just sad, and then they watch Deadpool, and they're like, man, this movie's great.
You know, I was just thinking, Joe, this is something that I feel like the Academy should really do, because, this actually came to me when I was listening back to last week's episode when we were talking about Deadpool. How the Academy is very out of touch, and this year, more than any year, it seems like they're super scrambling to make themselves relevant. Maybe they should get a deal with Netflix, and a month before the Oscars, or 2 months before the Oscars, or once the Oscars are announced, have everything up on Netflix.
See, but the thing is then everyone can see these movies, and I'm sure they would probably do better in terms of financial return. I don't know. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I mean, the idea of the screener idea is the point of screeners is not for people like you and me. The point of screeners is for people that actually have a cast a vote. To make sure that they can see all these movies and that they don't have to spend money to see these movies. But yeah, it's a good point. I mean, if these movies are getting harder and harder to watch in theaters, right? And it's just harder and harder to put them there, and theaters are less and less willing to put these movies in theaters, and they're limited release and stuff. A lot of people have never gone to see them, which really hurts, the ratings of the Oscars itself. Because if people aren't able to see these movies on a easy access level, they're not going to root for one of them. It's why they're going to end up throwing movies like Deadpool in there. Not that Deadpool doesn't deserve it. It's just it's clearly put in there so that a fan base will watch the Oscars.
Yeah.
And have a dark horse to root for that they know a lot of people want to go see. And it's just a marketing ploy. It's really kind of disrespectful to the movie Deadpool, actually. In my opinion, it is. I mean, they're kind of just like, wouldn't it be funny? And people would watch people would watch just to see that. Just to see that dark horse play out, And God, it's going to work. It might be the reason I watch the Oscars. Because if you don't have Deadpool, I'm really not going to watch the Oscars.
It's fair. I don't disagree.
I still might not watch the Oscars, but I think as a viewing event, it's starting to trend downward. Because a lot of people just aren't able to see these movies. So yeah, that's an interesting idea. I mean, again, it's Netflix. You're just making them more and more powerful, but
yeah,
good.
I mean, yeah,
good to some degree. Not always good, but good to some degree. I would like to see Netflix get more powerful, based solely on the fact that I don't want them to get bought by anybody.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Disney. I think it would be terrible. I think Disney's done a very good job, but Disney's not going to be doing a very good job forever. I think one day there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
And, again, Disney in the wrong hands is probably one of the scariest things on this planet. I mean, there's a few companies on this planet that if the wrong person is in charge and calling the shots, we're in trouble. That's all I have to say. We're in trouble. And it'd be great if things like Netflix just stand pat and don't, if I would like them to become their own thing. I mean, at this point, we don't need more fucking conglomerates, but I mean,
Yeah.
It'd be nice if instead of getting bought out, they actually grew into something on their own. So,
yeah, well, for this week's episode, we're going to take you back to a time.
Completely forgot what we were even talking about.
Yeah.
That we have a whole episode of talking to do still.
We're going to take you back to a time whenever Disney was in wrong hands. We're going to take you back to 1995, whenever the first ever full feature-length... we're talking about Toy Story this week.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bury the lead. No, we're going to talk about... We're doing a franchise spotlight on Toy Story, which is a movie that an entire generation loved as kids because it was a fun, colorful, animated movie, and then grew up and went, holy shit, this is a really good movie.
Yeah.
And the subsequent movies are just as good. There are very few franchises out there where you can point to every single one of the movies and say that they're equally strong.
Yeah. I mean, you could even debate that it's progressively just gotten better.
Yeah.
But the thing is about this franchise, someone can sit there and go, well, I think the best one is this one. And you can't argue with them. Like, it's really, nothing about these movies, there's nothing wrong with any of these movies. There's literally nothing about these movies that you go, well, that, I wish they would have, like, it's not like Star Wars or Indiana Jones or Back to the Future where you just, like, look at these things and you go, yeah, but, man, it'd have been so much better if, you know? Because, and I think it being an animated franchise, specifically computer animated in 3D animation, sort of gave it that advantage. That it never had to have a blemish. Because if there was a blemish and they were able to see it, it was patchable. It was retroactively patchable. They could watch it through and go, oh, well, we should fix this, you know? I mean, really, and the animation from the first one still holds up.
Yeah, you can tell it's primitive by today's standards, but it still looks pretty good.
Yeah. And you gotta hand it to them, they didn't dramatically... You know, it's perfect. Like, they didn't dramatically change things in the animation style from movie to movie. They kept pretty much the same character models. Detail, lighting, and texture, I think, is what has changed most heavily. But everything else is the same. Yeah,
they said that they just for a Toy Story 3, they did tweak them.
Yeah,
they had to tweak them, but they didn't. They said they didn't do as much as you may think they had to.
Yeah.
So, Joe, what are your thoughts on the Toy Story movie? Like, what are your feelings towards the Toy Story movies?
You know, we were right in the good age range when the first one came out. We were about 10 or 9 or 9.
You were 10, I was 9.
Well, it depends on what month it came out, but 9 or 10.
You were definitely 10 because it came out in November, and I was 9.
There you go. And that's Nick's memory for you, everybody. I don't know what to say to it. I was newly... Anyhow, we were the demographic. And we were the demographic for the first one. And then the second one came out when?
1999, I think?
For some reason, I'm having trouble just finding a general page to look at about the whole franchise. It seems, and that's the other thing, is I don't think people see this as a franchise as much. I don't know why that is. I think this is an animated movie. So it doesn't get lumped together like the way like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all these things have.
1999.
1999. So 4 years later, which is, I mean, a respectable amount of time. Like, you didn't expect it to come out right away within a couple years, you know, because of the amount of work that had to be done.
But because of Disney being in the wrong hands, they did expect it to come out right away because Toy Story 2 was originally supposed to be a direct-to-video movie.
Yeah, they had zero confidence in sequels at the time.
Michael Eisner just saw sequels as smash and grab.
Yes. Yeah, and
an entire generation of people have a trouble seeing direct-to-video as a good thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I feel like our generation sees direct-to-video as a bad thing specifically because of Disney sequels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these, like, half-assed animated movies that, you know, weren't made as well, had pretty much similar plot devices of the first one, weren't taken care of, and just thrown in a dumpster, basically.
Yeah.
Thrown right into the bargain bin. Yep.
Yeah.
Straight to it. One of the big things about this franchise that I think really turned the tide in it is the fact that they originally got such big name actors. They started a trend in the animated film department, I feel, in terms of...
Aladdin did that, Joe.
Oh, yes, Aladdin, you're right. Well, no.
Robin Williams.
It was Robin Williams. That was important, but this entire cast was made up of names, pretty much.
That's true.
To some extent. I mean, and there were two particularly big names that had a lot to do with this movie not going straight to video, and that was Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, who, well, let's just say, I think Tom Hanks got paid like $50,000 to do the first one, or something insanely small to do the first one.
He thought it was cool.
Yeah.
That was the reason why he wanted to do it.
And he took basically scale, as most... Doing voice acting was always scale. It was just some money on the side. You go in the booth for a minute and do some stuff or whatever. Like, big name actors really didn't have a reason to do this type of stuff. But for the sequel, they saw... They're not dumb. Tom Hanks and Tim Allen saw how much fucking money this movie made the first go-round, and they knew it could make this much money again, and if they played their cards right, they could get paid a lot of money on top of it. So, the only way to guarantee that, and it sounds crazy, but the only way to guarantee that was to not come back unless they met their demands for money. And I think, like, no joke, I think they got paid like $5 million or something, like, to do the second one. Like, insane amount of, like, considering what they got for the first one and what they got for the second one was insane. And it's like, that's basically, they kind of had to. Those were the characters. They were Buzz Lightyear and Woody. People knew that. People absolutely knew that. There was no mistaking it. You were not going to get away with, even if you did it straight to video, you wouldn't get away with it. People would not watch it. They knew that.
Yeah, they're both very protective of the characters. They refuse to let anyone else do them.
Yeah, they very early on were attached to these characters, and it's evident in how they kind of demanded their reprisal be at the right cost. And by doing that, Disney was like, well, we got to release it in theaters. You're not going to put all this time and effort into animating the movie, spend $10+ million on voice talent, which is insane at the time. Absolutely lunacy to spend that much money on voice talent. For these guys to go into the studio for a few weeks and read some lines and then go home and pay them all that money, that sounded insane. But they had to. They weren't going to do that and not release it in theaters. And God bless the Toy Story franchise. I don't remember who wrote the second one. Do you remember?
Lasseter.
It was Lasseter who wrote the second one?
Yeah, Lasseter, and it was a coalition, if you will. Let me see. I'm seeing who's credited. John Lasseter, Peter Docter, Ash Bratton, Andrew Stanton, and Rita... Oh, God, I have no idea how to pronounce her last name. Hsiao. When there's two consonants together like that, I'm like, I have no idea. And Doug Chamberlain. Mm-hmm. They all wrote they wrote it together just because...
That's the second one? Or the first?
That's the second one.
Okay.
The first one is just as many people. It's John Lasseter. Hold on. John Lasseter, Joss Whedon, I know, has a bunch in there.
Mm-hmm.
John Lasseter, Pete Docter, Andrew Stanton, the big three at Pixar at the time, creatively. Yes. Joe Ranft, who died in a car crash. I believe that's him. Joss Whedon and Joe Cohen. I forgot that he did a pass on that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Alec Scarlo.
Oh, yeah.
They all worked on that one. Yeah, Joss Whedon actually said that he forgot that he worked on Toy Story.
That makes sense because of where he was at in his career at that point.
Well, he was working at Disney for like 5 years because
Yeah.
he wanted to write at Disney because he wanted to write like an Aladdin-esque movie, and they never gave him the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
But they threw him on Toy Story, and he did a pass of it, and enough of it stayed in the script that they had to give him a credit.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the third one is Michael Arndt. The guy who did,
yeah. Michael Arndt wrote the script all by himself, but the story is Lee Unrich and John Lasseter.
Yeah.
I've gone to arguments with people about that because they're like, no, John Lasseter wrote it. I'm like, no, he came up with the idea, and Michael Arndt wrote the script.
Yeah. Michael Arndt is the sole screenplay credit.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting way this movie's been passed down. This franchise been passed down in terms of like directors and writers, and in only one case as the voice acting.
Because Jim Varney died, so it's a little hard.
Yes, yeah. Nothing. I mean, there is probably still something that they could have done, but as has been proven, it's best to just recast. And then you have, thank God Don Rickles has stayed alive for this franchise as well to do Mr. Potato Head, because, and it's interesting, like, there are, there's these voice acting in these movies has been just so good that you will every once in a while, like, hear Tim Allen talk, and you're just like, that's just Buzz Lightyear. Like, there's no, like, fake voices in this movie. Yeah. And that's the thing that, like, really changed a lot in this, is like, it's like, hey, we're gonna get actors, and they're not gonna do funny voices. Like, our cartoon characters are gonna have funny voices. They're gonna have the voices of actors. And
just if they play them live action.
Like they play them live action, and that's why you're paying them. And now it's commonplace. Now you wouldn't make an animated movie without having a name attached to it doing the voice, which again is insane. Like, it's totally nuts. The fact that Chris Pratt was in, like, I think he did Lego Movie, and what else did he do? I think he did something else where he voice acted, like, Chris Pratt's voice is nothing recognizable. When I saw Lego Movie, I didn't even realize it was Chris Pratt.
I didn't know who Chris Pratt was.
Yeah.
At the time I saw Lego Movie.
Yeah. I mean, like, there was no reason to even spend that money. You could just gotten a guy that does voice acting and probably paid him half the amount of money.
Yeah, actually, that's a big problem right now. There's a bunch of actors that are boycotting or, like, on strike because they aren't getting paid enough.
Yeah, and they should, because voice acting, the price should be up. You should, if you are going to give these big name actors all this money to voice things, you can't turn around and give somebody who isn't a name, like, hardly any money to do the same job.
But at the same time, a lot of them are also big names in their own right. Like Steve Bloom.
Right.
Again, we've looked up his IMDb page. He has like 600. I feel like it's like syndication. If a voice actor gets 100 unique credits, their pay should go up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or like so many starring. You know what I mean? Like, find some sort of equipment, because the voice actors' IMDb pages are the longest fucking IMDb pages you're gonna find.
Yeah.
So, but it did change things. Like, Aladdin lit the fire.
Yeah.
And Toy Story reinforced it.
I mean, we know that, like, Lion King had names to it as well, but it's just like, what Toy Story did to me in terms of, like, when you look at it, you're just like, man, the amount of money that they got, like, to do Toy Story 2 and then Toy Story 3. I mean, at that point, by the time Toy Story 3 comes out, it's pretty much the standard at that point, but it's the amount of money that these guys got to voice act that was just like, what? Like, it was perplexing, it's just like perplexing, yeah. I mean, like you said, they just thought it'd be something cool to do. Like, that's the way most actors saw that gig.
Yeah, Tom Hanks said that the reason why he did it is because they animated a scene from Turner and Hooch, and they used his voice. And he said that if he would have watched it and it wouldn't have clicked for him, he probably wouldn't have done it. But the fact that, like, they took this early model of Woody, and they animated it to his voice, he's like, it made sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I wanted to do it. And he's even said, like, he loves doing Woody. He's like, I feel like I'm in Dumbo. Like, I feel like I am in a classic. Like, like, you get the impression that out of all the things that Tom Hanks has done in his career,
Yeah.
Toy Story's like top 5 things he's most proud of.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting, and I think that admiration for for an animated character that you voiced, and him being such an influence in Hollywood in general, and a lot of actors kind of look to him, and for him to kind of have to talk about Woody like he's a character, like he's any character that he's ever done a role for, like it's the same thing to him, right? And I think for most actors, they would have never looked at it that way. They'd be like, no, I'd just be reading the lines in my voice. That's all it is, right? It's like, no. Tom Hanks looked at Woody like, this is a character, this is a role, that I'm going to take on. Like we talk about Robin Williams, and like Robin Williams was a character, and he was nuts anyhow. So people were just like, well, I could never do that. Like it's like that's not something I could do. That's not for me. But like Tom Hanks, the way he approached it is very, very different. Like he admires Woody as a character. He feels like he is a part of that character, and there's a freedom in that. I mean, there's such a freedom in probably voice acting for a character that's animated, right? I mean, he could never in person play a toy. This sort of innocent, unknown to the world sort of character, this sort of blissfully ignorant character that is also good-hearted and only intends to do good things for the cause that he knows. Like, there's something really beautiful about that, and to be able to step into a character like that. How many characters could you play like that in your lifetime? Like, you could play, like, a fish out of water tale or be a kid, he already got to do that with Big, and I think that was a big part of it, too. He was doing basically Big again, like that character that just is now in a world that he was not really prepared for, And it's just like, Tom Hanks can't really do that character anymore. He's too old to do that character.
Well, I mean, also, Toy Story is about midlife crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's so many things, and that's the other thing. The content of these stories and the way that these stories really, like, Toy Story was a real big part of the Pixar aha moment of adults are the ones that are going to pay to watch these movies. Sure, kids will drag them there, but it's kind of easy to entertain kids with this stuff,
Have you watched a kids movie? Yeah. Not a family movie, a kids movie?
Yeah.
Fucking horrible to watch.
Horrible. And this was the first time, like, in a while that, like, there's just this aha moment of, hey, we can make a movie where the message in the movie is sometimes way over a kid's head. Because really, when you think back to, like, watching The Lion King, Nick, when we were very young, the whole Hamlet thing, we didn't know what the fuck that was. That whole dynamic kind of went over our head. We just knew Scar was the bad guy, and we're rooting for Simba because he killed Mufasa. Like, that's it. Like, there wasn't much else to it for us. All we needed was a clear indication who the good guy and the bad guy was, and to never really mix that up. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do in a kid's movie, and then kids are on board. And then use bright colors and stuff. I mean, these movies have revolutionized family movies and children's movies.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's revolutionized storytelling in general.
Yeah.
Like, almost every single Pixar movie is fucking solid story-wise. Like, it's nuts. I mean, we've done episodes on Pixar, but it's fucking nuts on how solid the story structure is in these movies.
Yeah. It's really tight, and I say this all the time, like, when it comes to whenever I've seen movies in theaters, there's not a ton of moments sitting in a theater that I've been, like epically fucking moved. Like, about to cry. Like, movies don't really get me to cry so much, because Nick, as
man, Joe.
Well, no, I mean, Nick, as you and I know, like, we know too much about movies to really be like, just stunned by them, right? Like, you and I kind of know too much about it. Like, not that it ruins it, but it's just
we watch them differently.
And because we're a little more objective with our movies, and we in the way we kind of look at, like, the way the movie's positioned itself at this moment, we kind of go, oh, I appreciate the fact that I feel sad right now. Like, I appreciate the movie for making me see sad. You know what I mean? You see the difference? Like, it's kind of how it is. Like,
the same thing comics say, where whenever they watch someone else's set, they don't laugh. They go, "Oh, that's funny."
Yes, yeah, it's just like, God, yeah, I see. You put it all together and you see how they got there, and it's impressive how they even got there. I mean, and it's very rare that a movie actually gets me to really buy into it, how it got there, you know, and to almost sometimes forget all the technical aspects. And I think the fact that this is an animated movie is a big part of it as well, because I don't know how the fuck they do that shit,
Right.
you know. But in Toy Story 3, when they're about to kill Woody and Buzz,
All of them, Joe.
all of them, really, I know, but it's in that moment, like, you believe it. I mean, there's no reason you should believe that in this movie, right? But the way the whole thing's been set up to this point, all signs kind of indicate that killing off these characters wouldn't be insane. They're just toys, after all. Their story has always been, like you said, kind of about life in general.
I mean, the first one's about midlife.
Yeah.
The second one's kind of about empty nest syndrome.
Yeah.
And the third one is about, like, moving on.
Yeah. It's kind of about being reborn, actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, you know, sort of reincarnation aspects going on there, and the movie
Life
still kind of
doesn't
carries
end.
that out.
Yeah, life doesn't end just because you think it's going to end, sort of thing.
Right, yeah, there's this, like, afterlife tone in the whole movie. The movie it's very much centered around death, actually, the third one. And the way, and this is the three arc of all the movies, which is impressive, because when they made the first one, they did not have any intention, really, of knowing that they would make a second or a third, for that matter. And it's really impressive how this story has arced its way into a franchise, and how well it's worked. And who knew so many great and profound stories could come from a story about toys?
Yeah.
You know, and here you are, just sitting here, and these toys are about to be incinerated, and you just believe it. You're not just sad that they're about to kill them, you actually accept it. That's what's so brilliant about that scene. You accept it with the characters. Because they accept it. And you go, oh, they're gonna die now. And you're just... You don't go, oh wait, are they gonna kill them? No, you're like, they're going to kill them. And you have to... In that moment, you kind of have to, with them, go, it's okay. It's okay if they die.
Oh yeah,
and that's the saddest thing to, like, ever say. Be like, it's okay if they die. They're just toys.
That's the beauty. That's the beauty of them holding hands. Like
yeah,
that.
Yeah. And then they get saved, of course. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't seen Toy Story 3. If you haven't seen Toy Story 3, stop listening to this podcast. Go watch all of these movies. You're insane. Pop culturally, it's one of the most important franchises of this century, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I was only thinking about it because the majority of them were in the last century.
Well, that's true. Oh, this generation, I would say.
Okay, yeah, I'll go with that, yeah.
Yeah, because there's no one that hasn't seen these movies. And hasn't seen all of them, too. There's a lot of people that are just... I rarely do I talk to people that haven't seen all of these movies. It's very rare I find someone that's like, oh, I've only ever seen this one. It's like... It's very rare.
Yeah.
Because it's spanned almost perfectly across generations in terms of the way they've paced themselves out.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the third Toy Story movie is very much written with the people who saw the first one in theaters in mind as children. Like, it's very, very much with that intent.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, I remember thinking, we were still a bit young. What year did Toy Story 3 come out? It's like...
2010.
2010. So, I'm not doing the math very well, but that's 15 years, right?
Yes.
After the first one? Yeah. We were 5, or 9, we were 9 or 10. Yeah, I mean, people could have kids at that point. That generation could be having kids. So, yeah. I mean, it's very much, and of course they're going to make a fourth one, which we know, but we don't know very much about it. So
apparently, it's a reuniting and a love story around Bo Peep and Woody.
Yeah,
which could be super interesting because it's about like rekindled love. Which how many movies are really like legitimately about rekindled love?
Yeah. And
like,
how many movies
rom-coms.
have the opportunity to have like a 3-movie foundation for you to care about those characters and the rekindling of their love?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what would kill any movie with that plot line, right? Is that you have to get to know these characters and give a shit about their history before you care about the rekindling of their relationship.
I mean, that's the problem with any rom-com that use that whole trope, is that it's just like... okay, sorry. That's the whole problem with any rom-com that uses that storyline, because it just becomes tropey as fuck.
Yeah.
Whenever you have to try to do it. But like you said, there's a 3-movie structure, 2 of which Bo Peep is in.
Yeah.
And, we get that they have a pretty solid foundation. And, the way that she's mentioned in 3, it's just like punching you in the fucking heart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm down. I'm interested to... one thing I'm really interested about is that Rashida Jones is co-writing it.
Yeah.
It's the first time she's ever written anything.
Yeah.
So I want to know why Pixar was like, yes, this untested person, please come and write our 4th movie.
She didn't do any, what was it, Parks and Rec?
Nope, she did not write any Parks and Rec.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting choice then, yeah. I know one thing about this. At this point, they've made 3 movies, and I don't think it's... You can't write it off. You can't look at it and go, well, I don't like where this is. Like, you just can't. This franchise, time and again, is just put out a movie and you're not sure, and it's just great. Every time it's been great, and it'd be foolish at this point to go, well, we'll see. You know what I mean? It's like, no, we will see, because we're gonna go see it in theaters probably, because it's fucking Toy Story. Like, it's become one of those movie franchises where I feel like they can just keep making them, and I don't have a problem with it. At first, I thought I did. At first, I really thought I had a problem with them going past 3, and...
Everyone did. Because everyone loved that ending so much.
Yeah. But it's not fair. I don't think that's fair. I think all these other franchises are able to keep trucking along here and punishing us with their fucking... Fast and the Furious and Transformers, and we're just getting punished with fucking franchises at this point. Literally, like, I feel like we're being punished for going to see these movies. And here's Toy Story that keeps making high quality shit, and we want them to stop? Why? Because one day maybe they won't make as good of a Toy Story movie? Like, come on. Look how great what they've made so far, I would rather them keep making these and keep making them great than... If there's more stories to tell, there's more stories to tell.
Yeah.
I have confidence that Pixar will look at their stories and go, well, there's nothing else left here, and move on. I mean, I think they would have stopped Cars by now if they didn't feel like there was another story to tell.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like that's just because John Lasseter really likes the Cars franchise.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
To be fair, Cars is the only franchise in Pixar that I don't feel like are family films.
Yeah.
They're kids' films. Like, because, like, children fucking love Cars. They fucking love Cars. Parents, not so much.
Yeah. Well, the third one coming out, it looks like it's going to be a little darker. Which again, that's one that I feel like they don't, like, they've let their animation not be consistent, and I understand that the second one wasn't made the same way, but it looks like the third one too. It just is going to look too real.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I get, like, the technology's better from whenever they made the first one to make animated cars and less kitty-looking cars or whatever, just making it, the texture's better and all those things. But, like, you gotta hand it to Toy Story. Like, they really have pulled off their style time and time again, and it hasn't been too dramatic from the first one.
Yeah.
They've kept everything in a style that is still cartoony and still follows the original. Which is, something that's hard to do, because you're like, we could make this look way better. Like, they could have made toys. They could have made those toys look like actual fucking toys and not cartoon characters by now. But they've chosen to keep it where it is, and I think that's great. I think that's such a great call, and it's a decision that you wouldn't even think about. But if they made that change, it would change everything. Mm-hmm. It really would. And, they kind of have to stick to the same little style that they have. And I don't think Cars has really done that as much. So, again, they have an excuse, because I don't think they had the original character models whenever they made the second. So they had to build it from scratch. Which is fair. Which is a fair fair excuse. But the third one looks like it's going to be completely different. I don't care that much about cars, but it's franchise now, so
No one. I feel like no one over the age of 7 cares about cars, Joe.
Yeah, that's fair. And they don't hold
Except
up well
John
either.
Lasseter.
Even they don't hold up well. So
Yeah. But yeah, I think Joe. I think it's time for the vault.
the vault. Oh. Do you have a movie? I don't. I'm sorry. I was just about to start looking one up. As I looked at the time and realized I need to find a movie.
I can give one.
Okay.
It's something I haven't finished yet, but I've watched the vast majority of it. Which is a movie I didn't realize even fucking came out. Which was 2011's Three Musketeers. Which this movie is fairly stacked. Yeah, I know, Joe. I know that's a wait till you hear the cast.
Okay.
Because that's the even more mind-blowing thing. So D'Artagnan's played by Percy Jackson. For I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who played Percy Jackson. Luke Evans, who is the Universal Monster movies Dracula / Gaston in the new Beauty and the Beast. The older brother from Death at a Funeral. Mila Jovovich, Christoph Waltz, Orlando Bloom, and Freddie Fox, which I can't pin him, but his name sounds super familiar. Oh, and Juno Temple is also in this movie. Oh. Like, it's a fairly stacked... Oh, and yeah. Mads Mikkelsen.
Huh.
It's a fairly stacked movie. It was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, and written by him. His big claim to... What he's been working on mostly is he's written all the Resident Evil movies. He's also, I can't think of him. He's directed quite a Death Race movies. He's also directed those. This is a highly, highly, highly stylized version of Three Musketeers. Stylized to a fault, to be completely honest with you. There's a lot of slow motion in this movie that's completely unnecessary. They kind of do that thing that was really big in the early aughts, which is taking historical things and then trying to essentially steampunking them, finding a way to have modern things in them. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that it's a very well-stacked cast, and for the most part, everyone's pretty good in it. The story is, I believe, I've never read Three Musketeers. I'm familiar with the story, obviously, because I have a fucking pulse. But it seems like the story may follow the books a little bit closer than most adaptations we've seen recently. The last adaptation we saw of Three Musketeers was called The Musketeer, which was the Kung Fu version of Three Musketeers, which does not hold up. If you've watched it recently, because it was on Netflix, does not hold up at all. But it's, like I said, it's a very highly stylized video game movie-esque version of the Three Musketeers. But like I said, it's at least well acted. Oh, and fucking fucking the guy who replaced Craig Ferguson. What's his name?
I forget his name.
James Corden.
Corden. Okay.
Yeah,
I always want to call him James Gordon.
Yeah, understandably. No, but
because that's where my mind would go.
Yeah. No, James Corden's also in this movie as well. Like I said, it's a fucking stacked cast. And most of them are pretty good. Like, the dialogue's not fucking horrible. It's just there's a lot of really unbelievable action sequences in it. And a lot of, like, I think I mentioned a lot of unnecessary slow motion. Almost a Zack Snyder-esque amount of slow motion in this movie. But it's, for the most part, it's very well acted. Orlando Bloom's pretty fucking horrible in it. But Christoph Waltz plays Cardinal Richelieu, which is pretty fantastic casting, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think it's worth it. It has 3 stars on Netflix. That's where I'm in the process of watching it, and I haven't finished it. I got a half hour left on it, but I'm like, 3 stars is fair. I'm like, it's a very middle of the road movie. It's a fun action movie, but there's a couple eye rolly scenes in it.
Yeah.
I think is the best way to put it. There's a couple eye-rolly scenes. But definitely, I think it's if you're in the mood for a fun, dumb action movie, it's better than the Fast and the Furious movies. I'll put it to you like that. So yeah, check out 2011's Three Musketeers.
Yeah, every once in a while, that's one of those franchises that every once in a while just pops up. You know,
Yeah.
It's like someone's got to take a crack at it again.
Yeah.
You know, that'll always happen with like Robin Hood and King Arthur and the Three Musketeers. Someone's always just going to want to take a crack at that again.
Yeah.
You know,
as they say in Hollywood, they definitely had a take.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to do a movie that I actually forgot that I had seen, and I saw it in theaters when it came out back in 2007. It was Sidney Lumet's final film, directorial film, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. This is a movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ethan Hawke. Sidney Lumet, if you know any of his work, Network is my favorite movie that he's ever directed, but Dog Day Afternoon is the other famous one that he's known for. He basically has this story set up in this non-linear story about two brothers that are robbing a jewelry store. And the whole idea is that they're going to do it in such a way that no one is going to get hurt. There's going to be no violence. It's just a harmless crime and the way they're going to go about it. Like they just need the money sort of thing, and they devise this clever plan. And the way the movie's structured, it's sort of a mystery. But it's really not a mystery, but it's because the movie's told in a non-linear fashion that it becomes a mystery for you. That you kind of, as a viewer, it's in some ways has elements of a whodunit sort of thing. I don't remember a ton about this movie. I remember enjoying it quite a bit, and it's one of those movies that's interesting also in terms of story or backstory of how the movie was made. It was actually shot digitally. It's the only movie that Sidney Lumet ever shot digitally. And
it killed him.
And it killed him. And he loved it. And he would basically from there on out he was going to just switch to digital. But he died. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. Like, he praised digital. He's just absolutely, and this is a guy that a well-heralded filmmaker that just film all his life. He's this old head director in 2007 who makes a movie for the first time on digital, loves it, praises it, says he's going to use it for the rest of his life, and dies.
Well, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he died like 4 years later, so he had time to make another movie. He just didn't. Yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, it's great acting. I mean, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke. There's not a lot of, and I think Marissa Tomei is in this too. There's not a lot wrong with this movie in terms of that. If you're into that sort of storytelling, like non-linear stuff, like I know a lot of people nowadays think of Quentin Tarantino when they think of non-linear storytelling, and so there's a sort of a favoritism to that sort of aspect. But this is a movie that does very well because it doesn't really. It's not jarring. It's not annoying. It's crucial to the plot that you see things more than once and that things aren't told to you. You know, it's important to the plot. Whereas in so many cases with these non-linear stories, they're told out of order because really they're just not that fucking interesting to begin with, and they just tell them out of order to make them more interesting. And it really doesn't have anything to do with the plot itself. But the plot of this movie, it's important to the plot of this movie that this movie's told out of line. So. It's definitely worth a watch, especially if you're into that sort of thing in terms of writing, in terms of understanding how to tell the story directing-wise, and with the characters and the scenes, going from scene to scene in a non-linear way. It's important. Almost as good as like Memento in that way, where it just sort of it has a purpose to what it's doing, and you have to let it get there. And when it gets to the climax and at the very end, it's very good. It's worth it. 2007's Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, that wraps up another thrilling adventure of the Insert Movie Reference Here podcast.
Yes.
I guess that means I'm Nick Casino.
And I do want to say one thing. This, what is it? It'll be Thursday, right? When this comes out?
Yes, Joe.
So the 19th, the day that this comes out, the premiere of the show Baskets on FX, or the season premiere. I don't think it's that episode, but just I don't know what episode it'll be. But at some point, my brother Eugene is on the show. He shares a scene with Zach Galifianakis. He is a truck driver. We have no idea what episode it's going to be. That's why I'm saying it now, so that if you watch that show or you'd like to start watching now, it premieres on the 19th on FX, so it's worth a watch. I don't think it's the season premiere that he's in, but he is in an episode eventually.
Does he have lines?
He doesn't have lines, unfortunately. He is a truck driver, and he's in the truck with Zach Galifianakis, and he's reacting to him. So he's very much featured. He just doesn't have an exchange with him because Zach Galifianakis is on the phone the whole time, lying to somebody about where he is. And while he's describing where he is in the lie, Eugene is reacting to him because he's clearly not doing any of the things that he's saying. It's a funny situational comedy thing for him to be kind of bouncing off of.
Zach finally paid off.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to plug that for his sake because we rarely do you and I have like something like that to say that is actually that you can go and watch,
Yes.
And be a part of.
Well, there you go.
And that means I'm Joe Conniff.
See you next week. And
Scene.
You have been listening to the Sinister Dreamcast Network. For more from Sinister Dream Productions, check out www.sinisterdream.com.